this is a very boilerplate introduction in the podcast world, Trevor, to say you're the busiest man in NFL media, but I know firsthand because you have worked closely with my fiance. Like I have seen into your world, and I really do think you are the busiest guy doing this, man. So thank you for carving out the time for us.
Dude, I appreciate it. Carmen's schedule sometimes rivals mine. So I would say that maybe within your own Rolodex of people that you know, I might not be the most busy person. But busy is good, man. It means that I get to hop on shows with people like you with topics like this. And that's what makes it a lot of fun. So I appreciate you having me. And I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a good combo, man.
Well, fortunately, I like to think that we're not asking you to step too far outside of your comfort zone, right? Because like as a draft analyst, this is right in your alley of looking at what this rookie class is doing. So hopefully this wasn't too heavy of a list for you, but I am excited. We don't know each other's midseason all-rookie team. We flew into this thing blind, and I would guess there's going to be plenty of overlap. There's some incredibly obvious ones, but I think there should be some potential for excitement, particularly, I don't know about you, man, but when I got to the defensive side of the ball, I was like, shit.
There's a lot. There's one position in particular, I'll just say like linebacker, kind of straightforward, but basically other than linebacker, its beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know, we'll go get a certain notable Giants pass rusher in here, I would imagine. But outside of that, it really is. It's totally up for grabs. A lot of the guys that we're going to talk about. And yeah, I was going back and forth with your producer and I was like, hey, do you guys want me to send you over the list beforehand? And he's like, send it to me, but don't send it to Dave because I want to see the reaction on the show, which I think makes for better content anyway. So I'm very excited for that, just to hear your list next to mine.
It's a real choose your own adventure for a lot of these.
Totally.
All right, let's get it going though let's just get it out of the way. And I don't really think it's much of an adventure. It's funny because Dane and I just we did like a 25% of the way rookie team where we were just looking at the first month. And at the end of September, Cam Ward was the only quarterback you could choose because he was like the only guy that we had seen.
Right.
And a month later, I kind of feel like you don't have a choice but to say it's Jaxon Dart. And that's not to say that he's been bad. He's played really impressively, but unless you're just enamored with watching bad Titans football week in and week out, Jaxon Dart is kind of your only choice. Same thing for Dylan Gabriel. Like, unless you're really loving all of those checkdowns in Cleveland, Jaxon Dart kind of wins this thing by default.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Jaxon Dart has to be the pick here at quarterback. And again, saying has to feels like it's more insulting than it really is. Obviously, he gets into the game and they put him in as a starter. It totally changes the offense. And my co-host at the PFF NFL show, Dalton Washington, put it perfectly where he comes into the game and Brian Daboll basically takes the playbook they had from 2022, that year that they made the playoffs with Daniel Jones and with Saquon Barkley playing really well. And he basically just dusted that bad boy off. And he was like, we're going to run this offense again with Scadaboo and with Dart because Dart had the ability to do it. So the rushing addition, I think, sort of speaks for itself in what he's able to bring to the offense. And then as a passer, like I was lower on Jaxon Dart than I think a lot of other people in the industry because I got worried about some of those situations where it wasn't exactly ideal, whether that was passing under pressure, specifically passing in the fourth quarter. You know, basically Ole Miss has a lot of simplicities in their offense, which to Lane Kiffin's credit, like that's why he's a great coach, is he simplifies things for his quarterbacks. And a lot of time it is really just these one read things where you don't really have to go through progressions. You've got a lot of freedom to hang on to the ball for a really long time. And Jackson's still done that in the NFL. Like his time to throw is above 3. And then when it's pressured, it's above 4, I believe. So he still has those tendencies, but it really hasn't been that bad for him. Like he's got more big time throws and he does turnover worthy plays. He's obviously got some moments where he's willing to throw the ball deeper down the field and into tight coverage that you have to do to win at the NFL level that Russell Wilson wasn't willing to do in those first couple of weeks. And so I think Dart, especially coming from somebody who people would label as a Jaxon Dart hater, like I think he has been better than I expected him to be right out of the gate. And so I want to give him his kudos for that.
When you consider, too, what he's working with. I mean, I don't know how many snaps he had with Malik Neighbors, but it was his first game. It's kind of annoying to think that I don't know how much higher the ceiling's going to get for the Giants offense as a whole. Like you don't have Neighbors. Now they just lose Cam Scatterboo, which sucks. And so Jaxon Dart could keep playing out of his mind, but where's the rest of it coming from over the course of the year? I mean, I guess the Giants could be buyers at the trade deadline. I think that would be a bit of a mistake, assuming, I mean, hopefully they wouldn't give up anything too much. But yeah, so I don't know how much higher the ceiling gets, but I've been really impressed with what he's done. And yeah, like, does a lot of it rely on his athleticism? Absolutely. But that is like that part of his skill set helped him get drafted where he did. So I think there's a tendency to be like, oh, well, what do you do when you can't run around and extend plays? And it's like, well, these guys get drafted highly because that is a very big part of their game that is hard to take away. So I think it's worth pointing out that is something that makes these guys valuable, even if it's not quote unquote like true quarterbacking, you know?
Totally. And really the only extension to that conversation of why it could be seen as a negative and sort of my hesitancy is when you rely too heavily upon it, right? We see college quarterbacks who have that freedom and have that athletic ability when they're at the college level. And whether it's because NFL defenses are just a little bit faster or who they are as an athlete just isn't head and shoulders above NFL competition the way that it was in college, sometimes you get too reliant on that and you become one of those like, all right, one read and take off type of quarterbacks. And there just are not a lot of quarterbacks in this league that can survive off of that. But Dart is showcasing why he was considered a first-round pick by NFL teams, especially the New York Giants, in what he's able to bring to the table from an athletic standpoint, for sure.
And throughout the ups and downs, he makes the Giants a team that I want to watch, which
I agree. Yeah.
Not something that you could take for granted over the last 10 years. All right, so Jaxon Dart, a default winner, but a worthy winner, if that makes sense. Let's move on to running back, which I should have said this at the top of the exercise, Trev. We're doing this a little bit differently. There's no like AP all rookie team. So we're granted a little bit of freedom with how we want to do this. You know, you see a lot of like all-star teams have 2 running backs or a certain number of wide receivers. We wanted to do this kind of fantasy football style. So our team is going to have one running back, 2 receivers, and 1 tight end. And then the last skill player is going to be a flex position. It can be any one of the 3. It's up to the 2 of us. So I don't know how Trev decided to handle that, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. So for running back, I only had 1. How many did you have?
I have 1 running back. Yes.
Okay.
Which makes this very interesting if we didn't have the same one.
I know. And this was a position that I kind of agonized over. And I felt conflicted no matter who I chose, because one guy might be a little too simplistic, and then the other one, maybe you're overthinking it. But I came down on Quinshon Judkins.
Okay. All right. Do you want to explain Quinshon Judkins, or do you want to hear who I picked?
I want to hear who you say first, because I want to I want to see if it's the guy that I almost chose.
I took Cam Scatterboo. Cam Scatterboo is my choice here.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Full disclosure, I guess, and that's not really fair. It bummed me out to put Scatterboo on a team like this because he's not going to be playing moving forward, which maybe that's good justification for doing it, where it's like, hey, let's reward what he did, what he was able to do. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So it was basically, and for me, I considered Quinshon. Quinshon was actually 3rd for me, though, because Omarion Hampton's missed time. Obviously, he's been on IR for a little bit, but like his flashes and his best were really impactful for the Chargers. So I actually almost went with him, but the consistency of what Cam Scatterboo has been, both as a rusher and receiver, you look at yards after contact per attempt, yards after the catch per attempt, and then just volume in and of itself. I mean, Malik Neighbors goes down and you feel like, oh my gosh, what do the Giants have at this point? They had Cam. They were very clearly comfortable with handing him the ball and throwing it to him as a receiver. And the injury, man, it just sucks because not only do you hate injuries no matter what, but This is one of the most fun players in the NFL. He had a big, bold personality. He absolutely brought that to how he played the game of football. I loved watching him when he was at Arizona State. And so there's a little bit of pre-draft bias baked into this because I had him RB3 in this past class. And I had him as that because of what I saw him do at Arizona State that I felt like he was already doing with the New York Giants. And he was only going to continue to do that at a consistent level. So I've loved so much of what he's been able to do. And going back a little bit to what we talked about with Dart, hey, what are you without Malik Neighbors? Where are the weapons? Who are you going to lean on? They leaned on Cam. And I think that the more they leaned on him, the more they got in return. And I feel as though we were only at the tip of the iceberg of what he was going to potentially be for them in his rookie season. So you're right. Sucks that we're not going to see him anymore this season. I hope he's fully healthy going into next year. But for the first, whatever it is, 2 months that we've had of this season, I felt like he has been the choice for my midseason running back.
Do love that point, and you don't want to hold on to your draft priors forever, but Cam Skattebo is such a polarizing prospect because, like, there's the camp of people that are like, you're all overthinking this. Look at the way this guy played at Arizona State. Like, he is a damn good running back. And then there were just as many people that were like, you're not going to be able to live that way in the NFL. It's just not realistic. And through at least the first half of his rookie season, Cam was putting the doubters, he was shutting them up a little bit. So I think that is a very valid point. I am very sad that the Dart Skattebo takeover won't keep happening in New York, at least this year. As far as Quinshon Judkins, like, I feel like it's a little too obvious just because he's leading all rookies in rushing yards, but he is at 104 rushing yards over expectation right now, and he has 164 of his rushing yards after contact. Like, all of the shit that Ashton Genty's dealing with in Vegas, Quinshon Judkins is dealing with too, and he has been insanely productive. He's obviously been such a bright spot on a bad Cleveland offense, and the way that he's managed to make a lot of it happen despite very unideal circumstances, I just think is incredibly impressive.
I think that Cleveland's offensive line not really being good anymore is a very under talked about part of that team. It was very, very shocking to me that they did not address offensive line at all whatsoever this past offseason in free agency or in the draft in particular, which is what I was really talking about. And I think that you're seeing that this year. Yeah, they don't really have the star power to compete, but it wouldn't really matter who's playing quarterback for them. That offensive line was not going to be as good as it needed to be. And I think that Quinshon Judkins being able to produce absolutely goes into sort of his willingness and his running style of what we saw when he was at Ole Miss, when he was at Ohio State, where this is a dude who can get all sorts of yards after contact for you. He's somebody who can kind of do it yourself as much as you can independent of an offensive line. And so his overall numbers are really good. You mentioned the yards over expectation because the volume sort of goes into that just as a volume stat as a whole, but he is continuing to deliver when they need for him to deliver. But I'll shout out Amarian Hampton, who, like I said, he was going to be my second pick if I didn't go with Cam Skattebo. And the reason why is because, yeah, he's missed some time due to injury, obviously, but the efficiency numbers from him have been really, really good. A metric that we love over at PFF to sort of separate running backs from their offensive line is missed tackles forced per attempt and yards after contact per attempt, right? Missed tackles forced, you can force a missed tackle in the backfield. You can do that at the line of scrimmage. You can do that at the second level. Same thing with yards after contact. You can get hit in the backfield. You get hit at the line of scrimmage. You get hit in the second level. What do you do after that? Do you make guys miss and do you get those yards after contact? 0.35 missed tackles forced per attempt is a very, very good mark. If you are above a 0.30 missed tackles forced per attempt average, you're talking about being one of the best and most efficient backs in the NFL. And then when it comes to yards after contact, 3.8. I mean, that's fantastic. That's a really good score. Anything above 3, I think, is a really good score when it comes to yards after contact. So lower on the volume, but he also gives you something in the receiving game as well. Not quite as much as Cam Skattebo did, but I think Amarian Hampton is going to be a good one.
Ultimately, not enough to get me to pick him, but I'm going to use this opportunity to just say Ashton Genty's still a good player for the record. Like,
yeah. I just want to say that so controversial yet so brave.
I just want to say that into a microphone, and like we can have all the conversations we want about whether the Raiders should have drafted him, but He's doing just fine in a really bad situation, just for whatever that's worth.
When they get the offensive line and really just the passing game a little bit better, a little bit more efficient, Ashton Genty will still be the guy that you thought he was going to be coming out of Boise State. Nothing is wrong with Ashton Genty. I agree with you, and I'm glad you said it.
All right, wide receivers. Again, we had to choose 2, but you don't have to choose 3. I am curious how many you went with.
I only went with 2 here. Did you go with 3?
Man. We're 2 lined up here. I was wondering if you were going to go with 3. So I'm going to step out on a limb here. It's a very sturdy limb. I don't think I'm going to be wrong when I say you went with Emeka Ibuka and Teteroa McMillan.
I did indeed.
That's a lot of just shocking stuff here.
And you have to, right? I mean, it lines up with them being wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. I think people knew that Teteroa McMillan was going to have to step in and be that wide receiver 1. I remember going through the pre-draft process and saying, look, if Carolina's going to consider him at their spot, because we did go through these exercises when we talked about the Carolina Panthers, you would do so because you look at the rest of your receivers and you feel like right now they're all punching up above their weight class. Xavier Legette, he was kind of forced into being a wide receiver 1 for them, and he really isn't a wide receiver 1 type of player. Adam Thielen, at his point in his career, was having to be a wide receiver 2, sometimes even wide receiver 1, and he is more of a wide receiver 3. Jalen Coker, for as much as he was doing great things last year, you don't want him to be that wide receiver 2 for you. You would ideally like for him to be a flexible move, put him anywhere on the offense type of a wide receiver 3. When you draft Emeka Egbuka, when you draft Teteroa McMillan, that all gets to fall in line. And I think that's why, beyond his production, the value that he brings as the staple wide receiver 1 in that offense is the reason why you were seeing it operate a lot better this season. So I think that fit was fantastic. And then Egbuka, man, the injuries to Mike Evans, how Chris Godwin sort of came back, but now he's back on the injury report, and it's a slow comeback from his ankle injury. Like, where is this team without Emeka Egbuka? And I know some other guys like Cam Johnson and Tez Johnson are stepping up, and obviously they've needed that. But if they don't have Egbuka, I don't think this team is 6-2. At the very least, I think they got at least 1 less win, and it might be 2, just because that passing offense, for as great as Baker Mayfield has been, doesn't get to have the statistics and the production that it has without Egbuka in there.
The way that it all got steadily removed from Emeka Ibuka, like a Jenga game, where you're just slowly pulling blocks out of there. Like, even going back to the preseason, like Jalen McMillan was a guy that had a chance to play a big role. He's gone. Evans leaves in short order. Obviously, Godwin's working back from an injury, and guys have come in and out of the lineup at different times, but the prevailing theory was like, oh man, you don't even need Ibuka to carry that much of a load in his rookie year because you got all this stuff. And it was all gone by like week 3 of the season. And he's still, I know he's ticked down a little bit since that amazing Seattle game. I mean, the whole Bucs offense really has over the last couple weeks, but just outstanding stuff. I mean, even if everybody was healthy, it would be outstanding, but since they're not, even crazier.
He just needs to play against a fellow Ohio State wide receiver every week just to have that like pride of who's the best. And then, then we'll see more of the Seattle game from him. But no, he's been fantastic. And, we do a live draft show over at PFF, and we happened to be in commercial when the pick came in for Emeka Egbuka, and my jaw hit the floor. I could not believe it, and then we're sitting there and, we start talking about it when we come back from break, and it's like, I love this player. This is a top 20 player for me. I think he's just such a clean eval. He's absolutely a guy who's going to be an NFL difference maker. But does Tampa need him? Was this a luxury pick that you really didn't need to make? And again, it's very ironic, interesting. I don't know what the exact word is that now without him, I can't imagine where this Bucs team would be.
I think it's a picture perfect example of like, just don't assume too much about the future in the NFL.
Yeah.
Cause and I hate to be a bummer. We love Mike Evans. You're a big Buccaneers guy. Like, but who could have guessed when that happened? Like, how many games are the 3 of these going to even play together when it's all said and done? It's probably not going to be very many.
I mean, did they get one?
I don't know if they got one with all 3.
I don't think they did get one with all 3.
So, I mean, case in point,
Man,
and
yeah.
and
No, that's a great
obviously,
point.
so yeah, never assume too much. And quickly about McMillan, I do just want to say very similarly, consider, and not that we thought the world of the Panthers pass catchers coming in, but like consider that situation as well. Xavier Legette was dealing with an injury earlier in the year, also just had a very disappointing start to the year. Jalen Coker started the year on injured reserve.
Right.
Adam Thielen got traded away before the season started. Jimmy Horn was hurt before at the beginning of the season, and all he did was step in. Granted, you're supposed to do that when you're a top 10 pick, but he just stepped in and was the most consistent thing about the passing offense from the word go. And he's just been that guy every week, just looking effortless out there.
Did you have a third wide receiver that you either thought about for this position or thought about at the flex?
I debated Travis Hunter just for the high points of it all,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
the highlights have been incredibly impressive, but I couldn't get there with a guy who was consistent enough over that many weeks.
I agree with you. I thought about Hunter, but ultimately you're right. I mean, like, it's just not there from a totality standpoint for him to match up against these two. Elikayo Maynard's been good for the Titans, but not what Igbuka and Tet have been. Matthew Golden obviously has looked good in spurts.
Packer fans might take issue with me not even mentioning Matthew Golden, but I think I liked my other options that much more.
Yeah, Golden has been good, and so that's why I think that he deserves a shout out here on the show. Golden has been good, but the fact of the matter is he's just in an offense with a lot of different passing weapons to throw to, and it was just too obvious what Igbuka and McMillan have meant to their teams to not have them as the two guys here.
So let's do tight end, and based on what we're saying, we both chose two.
Yeah.
I know who one of them is going to be. I'm curious to see where we came down on the other one. So obviously, we both chose Tyler Warren. I'm not even going to ask you that question. Is he rookie of the year? Like, no, I don't know. Like, no offense to Emeka Ibuka, and there are going to be guys that have something to say about this, but geez, dude, Tyler Warren, I liked him as a prospect. Maybe I wasn't, and maybe this is on me. I don't know if I firmly believed that an NFL team would be able to deploy him in all the ways that Penn State did. Like, in order to get your bang for your buck, that's what you got to do. And my God, if Shane Steichen didn't have a beautiful plan.
Yeah, and to answer your question, of all the accolades that we're going to talk about when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor, MVP or Offensive Player of the Year, Quentin Nelson, is he going to win Protector of the Year? Tyler Warren, is he going to win Rookie of the Year? Of all of the awards that we talk about for the Indianapolis Colts, the one that is at the forefront is Coach of the Year. Like, what Shane Steichen is doing, not just from a win-loss perspective, but that offense, I know you know this, is nuts. I mean, every single week they score 30 plus. Their EPA per play for not just the entire stretch of the game, but like first quarter, starting off the game every single week, the game plan is flawless for this team. Now, I understand they haven't played the best competition, but it is unbelievable how it is all coming together. And you talked about what Tyler Warren has been able to do in this offense. It's not always that we get NFL coaches that look at what these very talented, effective, productive football players do at the college level and say, yeah, let's try to continue to do that. A lot of times they'll draft guys and they'll be like, hey, we think you're really talented, but you're going to play within our system. You are going to play within an NFL type of offense here. Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, the Indianapolis Colts, looked at everything that Tyler Warren did for Penn State as a inline blocker, as a slot receiver, as an out wide receiver, as a running back out of the backfield, as a lead blocking fullback, as a split zone wingback, and even as a wildcat quarterback at Penn State. And they said, yep, do that. Let's do that. Let's take all that stuff that you just were, let's draft it, and then let's do that in your rookie season. So to answer the spirit of your question, he should absolutely be up for debate for Rookie of the Year because of everything this dude does. He's so good.
His tape looks indistinguishable from Penn State, which, yeah, I just didn't really know if I believed that was going to happen. I love watching him so much. He's a good blocker. They put him in the backfield. He's running routes from like an offset eye. He's doing traditional tight end stuff. He's got a Wildcat quarterback snap under his belt. He's the man. All right, but that leads to the more interesting question. You chose a second tight end, and so did I.
I did.
I'm just going to take the coward's way out because I host the show and ask you for your guy.
I picked Harold Fannin Jr.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about this because, all right, who were you between him and who were you between him and? Because
Oronde Gadsden.
All right.
It had to be.
I chose Gadsden.
Yes.
I chose Oronde Gadsden, and I bet you we came down on different sides of the same rationale.
Yes. It was basically a situation where, very similarly to the way that you talked about Quinshon Judkins, overcoming sort of the deficiencies of the rest of the offense, Harold Fannin Jr. has basically had to be that guy for the Cleveland Browns since the very first game of the season. He played 55 snaps in game one. Like, there was no...
It's pretty incredible.
And he played 50... And the thing is, he played 55 snaps. David Njoku exists, right? Like, David Njoku, I know he's been hurt. He's been in and out of the lineup a little bit. But, like he is consistently playing. You look at the amount of snaps that he has played in a single week. 55, 46, 42, 57, 55, 66, 47, 40. This guy is a mainstay of the offense, whether there's two tight ends on the field or not, whether David Njoku is out there or not. And he has been able to give them return on investment the way that he was able to play again at Bowling Green. And I look at sort of his tape there, and it's like, man, a reason why I was a little bit lower on him was because I just truly doubted that an NFL team would give a smaller tight end sort of this freedom to be this sort of emphasis in their offense. And the Browns absolutely have, and he has been a pretty good return on investment type of a player for them. So for how much they have used him and for how much they have needed him since game one of this season, it was just simply a volume thing, because the highs are there for Gadsden, right? It's a little bit smaller in sample size, but the highs are there for him. I went with the volume guy who's been producing since week one in Harold Fannin Jr.
I'll be honest, it's probably the right answer because Fannin's been doing it from the word go and just consistently week after week in a bad situation, just toiling away in obscurity in the 12 p.m. window. I was so taken with what Gadsden's been able to do. And he was a healthy scratch at the start of the season. And the way that he has outpaced Harold Fannin and almost everybody but Tyler Warren really in that time. Like, you know that guy, the Freeze that races people in the outfield of Braves games?
No, I have no idea, but keep going because the people that know this analogy, it's probably going to hit.
So they let fans run the warning track at Braves games, and they give them like a 100-yard head start, and then they let this guy who's like a sprinter go after 100 yards, and the whole goal is just to see if he can hawk them down despite their lead. That's how I feel about Gadsden, where he was just chilling for 2 weeks, and now he's just hawking everybody down because he's playing with Justin Herbert. And I mean, obviously, his stats against the Colts are doing a lot of heavy lifting, but I mean, it's been 3 weeks in a row now where clearly he's going to be a big part of this thing moving forward. So I think it's fair to say Fannin's been the more consistent guy, but it's just been fun to watch him kind of take off.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's hard to have a wrong answer between these two players because their cases are so different. Like if you just said like Harold Fannin, for example, he has 377 receiving yards this year. Almost 200 of them are after the catch, and over 100 of them are after contact, right? And then if you look at Gadsden, his numbers aren't that good from those categories, but the overall receiving yards are there. The contested catches, he's like 100% this year. His yards per route run is
2.5.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
stupid. It's a lot. Yeah,
it's nuts. So, anyways, I think that there's not really a wrong answer between these two. I will shout out though, Jackson Hawes and Mitchell Evans, the two more blocking tight ends, one for the Buffalo Bills and one for the Carolina Panthers. They don't have the overall like offensive production to, I think, get considered for this position here, but both of them grading very, very well this season. And to be honest, doing a great job unlocking heavy personnel the way that these teams have wanted to. Carolina's gone more towards heavy personnel and 12 personnel since I think like week 3 or 4 on. And a big reason is because they've had Mitchell Evans to be able to command that line of scrimmage for them, while Jatavian Sanders, whoever else is going to be condensed on the line of scrimmage, could be more of a receiver. They get to do that because of what Mitchell Evans is doing. So I just want to shout out those two guys who have been playing well.
Deservedly so. Justice for the non-stat getters. All right,
Yes.
we're going to take our first break, and on the other side, we'll dive into the rookie offensive lineman.
This episode of the Athletic Football Show is brought to you by our friends at Facebook. You know, every year around this time, there's that one night when everyone's back in town, Thanksgiving Eve. You swing by your old bar, see some familiar faces, maybe even reconnect with an old teammate you haven't talked to in years. That's what Facebook's all about, those little connections that end up meaning a lot. Maybe it's someone posting in your high school alumni group saying they're home for the holidays. Or maybe you find out about a local turkey trot where you dress up with family through a Facebook event. Even hopping on Marketplace to grab something to spice up your home ahead of Thanksgiving can spark a new friendship. This season, Facebook's reminding us that a little connection goes a long way. So if you're heading home, hop on Facebook, check out your group's events marketplace, and see who you might reconnect with. Let's reconnect this holiday season with Facebook.
I'm debating how I want to do this. I guess let's just start with the offensive tackles, because I think we can spend the least amount of time on it, in my opinion. I just the look you're giving me. All right, I at least I didn't feel the need to spend a lot of time on it. I think Will Campbell has shown me more than enough that I feel comfortable putting him at the left tackle spot, and I freaking love Armand Membu, and I did not think that hard about plugging him in at right tackle either.
So we agree on one of them.
Okay.
We agree on Armand Membu.
Yeah, I mean, it's not controversial if you didn't choose Will Campbell. Like, obviously, Will Campbell's had his ups and downs. We're recording this right after the Cleveland-New England game, so we know that Will Campbell is not. It's not as if he's like an immovable wall or anything. So I don't think this is controversial. I just think Will Campbell, he did enough for me. But what was your thought process here?
So I like what Will Campbell has been able to do. Starting as a rookie in the trenches, very difficult task, especially at offensive tackle. And so for him to be grading pretty well, you go and you watch the tape, and he's already, I think, a really technically sound blocker. And the ways that he loses are kind of the ways that he lost when he was at LSU. Just doesn't quite have that long stretch of a kick slide when it comes to protecting that outside shoulder. The arm length is a little bit shorter, and when he's taking on bull rushes from some of the more stronger defensive ends, especially when they get a runway and they get to convert that speed to power, he gets knocked back a little bit, and he's not able to anchor as well as some of these other guys. But he's still on the in-between, very, very steady. He's doing a great job, and so I think that I almost went with Will Campbell here. I actually went with Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from the Kansas City Chiefs.
Which, for the record, and look, it's clearly whatever's going on with Josh Simmons is clearly a pretty serious situation. So I'm not making light of it. I probably would have chosen Josh Simmons if he had played 7 or 8 games, but as of right now, I believe he's either played 4 or 5.
Yes.
And so it wasn't enough of a sample size for me to choose him over Will Campbell. If he had played the full allotment of games, I don't think I would have even thought hard about it.
So in an extension of that, we just did an episode over on my draft podcast, the NFL Stock Exchange, where we went through like the best and worst returns for, each round of the NFL draft, some players that have happened midway through the season. And I didn't even really consider Josh Simmons for the best return, with him being the last pick of the first round. And some people in the chat, in the comments, they were like, whoa, like no mention of Josh Simmons at all. And in my head, when I went into this exercise, I didn't really think to mention Simmons because he's missed 3 games now at this point, and we don't know when he's going to be back. So I didn't really consider him just because of a lack of volume, like you mentioned there. But then when I went back to go watch the tape, yeah, there's more of a volume for these other guys, but in my opinion, Simmons has been the best. Now, he hasn't been the best run blocker. The run blocking stuff, he's not as effective. But boy, when I watch this guy in pass protection, he's got the lowest pressure percentage allowed. Obviously, he has the lowest total pressures allowed because he's only played in a handful of games where these other guys have played, 7 or 8. But the pressure percentage for him is the lowest of any of these guys, especially the left tackles. And I just think that he looks like he handles power so well. He's got that explosiveness. that we saw at Ohio State, where he's able to protect that outside shoulder, but he can still mirror guys for the inside. I think he is a future stud in this league. And so that was one where I just went back and I watched a little more tape, and I was like, you know what? He doesn't have the volume, but I actually like his tape the most. So I went with Josh Simmons as my left tackle here.
That's a true scout's answer right there. And I don't take issue with it. And it's easy to imagine, like when it's all said and done, Will Campbell was the top 5 pick, but it's very easy to imagine Josh Simmons being just the most impressive option at left tackle, just in terms of like looking like that prototypical guy. Will Campbell, he's never going to look like the prototypical guy because he's not. And that was the knock on him from people that didn't like him as much. And you've definitely seen that over the course of this year. But I kind of what I love about Will Campbell is that he has displayed the issues that a lot of people thought he would have.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't stopped him from being successful.
That was totally my thought about him and why I loved him still as a prospect. It's like, yeah, there are going to be if he goes up against Jared Verse, if he goes up against Myles Garrett, yeah, it's going to be a tough day for him. Those dudes convert speed to power incredibly well. Pound for pound, they're some of the strongest dudes in the NFL. It's just going to be a tough day for Will Campbell. But 14 out of the 17 games that he plays in the regular season, he's going to play a pretty clean game every single time. And so, yeah, like you said, like, is he the elite of the elite when it comes to those physical traits? No, but man, the floor is so high for Will Campbell, and I think it's pretty rare that you see that already as a rookie.
On the flip side of that, though, like if Josh Simmons keeps ascending toward the ceiling that it looks like he's scratching, as good as Will Campbell could be, that's the type of thing that makes you look back a few years later like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Interior it's tricky because you just don't have that many options. Like, for instance, let's just get center out of the way. There really aren't any options for like rookie every week in, week out centers.
So I just went 3 interior offensive linemen.
That's probably the right way to do it.
Because of exactly what you said. Is Jonah Monheim the only one who has like a good amount of snaps this year?
He played like one game for Jacksonville. He's like the only one. So this is the way I thought about it.
We can still send him the award. Send him the award. He can still get it in the mail, put it on the trophy case, but
the way my brain works is I was like, well, Jared Wilson deserves to be mentioned here, and he played center in college, so he'll just be my rookie center. It's fine.
There you go. I like it. I like him getting in there. I almost had him in there. He was my 4th of the 3 that I chose here. I went with Tate Ratledge from the Detroit Lions, who I think is really fitting in very, very well with that offensive line. I went with Grey Zabel from the Seattle Seahawks because I think he's been a perfect fit for their outside zone rushing scheme. The way that this dude gets off the ball, playing that guard spot, I mean, he just explodes out of his stance. Now, pass protection, it's still a work in progress for him, but you see he's already playing so much confidence when they're calling a run play. And so the run blocking stuff, in my opinion, is really good for him, especially for the fit of where he ended up going. The pass protection stuff, we're still working on it, but I still think that he was worthy of being mentioned here. And then Connor Colby ended up being my 3rd guy that I picked here for the San Francisco 49ers, simply because when I actually was going back and forth between him and Jared Wilson, if you wanted a guy for center, I totally understand how you were like, all right, I'm going to throw Jared Wilson in there because he played center.
I think Georgia. In very like black and white terms, I'm like, well, I got to have a center.
If you have to have a center in there, I totally get it. But Colby was somebody who I think has showed through 8 games a little bit higher of a floor than Wilson. Wilson still has those positively graded plays where he's been pretty good, and he's shown, man, that's somebody who the athleticism, the core strength, the balance, it's there for Wilson. And it's funny. The Patriots have him playing guard. You can kind of tell just looking at him that it's like, you want to have your hand on the ball right now, don't you? And when he's playing at that guard spot, and it's just the way that his pre-snap stance, just the way that he's sitting down, like everything, you could just kind of tell that he wants to play that center spot. But Colby, I think, has had a little bit higher of a floor. He's dealt with power and a little bit easier. He's been a little bit more consistent with leverage. He's been, in my opinion, a little bit better and more consistent when it comes to reach blocks, getting to the second level, being coordinated in that regard. So I think that Colby, where he hasn't been perfect, I don't think any of these interior guys have been perfect per se, but I liked what I saw the more I watched from him, and it was between him and Wilson. I ended up going Colby for the consistency.
I think that's a good shout. And for stuff like this, especially because we're not actually sending anybody any awards, if you can do this as like a day 3 pick, I just want to highlight that. Like, you have less opportunity to the playing field, less people, like less sponsors in the organization to still do that. I think that's a great shout. So I also had Gray Zabel and Tate Ratledge as well. All right, Trevor, this has been the inside joke all season long, and I'm gonna keep it going. Like,
okay.
I don't know, just what do we need to say about Abdul Carter? I mean, he leads all rookies in pressures. He's got a 13.5% win rate. He's awesome. I mean, I know he only has 1 sack, but he looks exactly like we thought he would look. I just don't think we need to talk a lot about him. And I feel bad for Giants fans because we're not talking a lot about their very good young player. But, like, what do you want me to say?
Right.
Like, in the interest of saving some time, let's just say, Abdul Carter, you kick ass. Now let's talk about these other spots on the defensive line.
Yeah, number 3 overall pick. Could have very well been the number 1 overall pick talent-wise. You nailed it.
Well done.
There you go.
Now let's fight about these other 3 spots on the defensive line, because this stressed me the hell out.
Yeah. So the way that I went about it is I went with 2 edge rushers and then 2 interior defenders.
Same.
Did you go the same thing?
Same.
Okay. Do you want me to go one at a time? Or you want me to name all 3 and then just kind of talk about all 3?
Let's go one at a time. And I'm just okay. I will actually, just so I'm not always being a coward, I'll start this off. And I want to talk about the other edge spot, which caused me a lot of angst. Because the guy that I wanted to name, like, doesn't have the stats to back it up, and I think people are going to call me crazy. But I want to say, for the record, Mykel Williams, I think you're a good football player.
Okay.
I think Mykel Williams is a good football player. I think the 49ers are beat to shit. I think they drafted him primarily to, like, at least at the start, be like a run defender and kick inside and just cause havoc. And Nick Bosa's not coming back, and they're a young defense, and they're asking him to do a lot of shit, and he doesn't always look up to it, but he's a really good football player, and I think he is just fine, and I'm tired of people acting like he's some terrible draft pick.
I do think that he is what the 49ers, well, I should say, I was lower on Mykel Williams simply because I didn't think that he was ever going to be the pass rusher that he has the talent, or maybe he thought that he had the overall ability to become at the NFL level. So I was a little bit lower on him, but I fully recognize, dude, this guy's strong as an ox. He's got the super long arms. He could play on a 4-eye technique on an odd front if you wanted to. He could play a 5 technique as a defensive end if you wanted to. He could set the edge for you. He could take on double teams decently well for a player of his weight and profile. So as a run defender, I think they are getting what they wanted out of Mykel Williams. I think the real frustration when it comes to the Mykel Williams conversation is you're going to have people who go, a guy who can't rush the passer's not worth number 11 overall. And then you're going to have other people who go, he's a good football player. And I think those people are sort of just going to bicker and fight against each other, and they're just both going to believe that they're going to be right. So with Mykel Williams, he has been fine in run defense. I think what sucks with Mykel, and this is not his fault, you mentioned Nick Bosa going out, and even Bryce Huff getting hurt as well. There's nobody really on this team to rush the passer. I mean, let's face it, they were terrible at run defense last year. So what did they do? They draft Mykel Williams, run defender, CJ West, run defender, Alfred Collins, run defender. And now all of a sudden, in theory, you have a pretty good defensive line. You have Nick Bosa, who could tee off when he gets the green light, when he can pin his ears back. You got Bryce Huff, who you added to be that designated pass rusher for you, and you improve the floor of the defensive line. But now instead, Huff's hurt, Bosa's out for the season. Now a lot of people are looking at Mykel Williams and going, okay, be a better pass rusher. And that's not fair to him because he's never been that. So the conversation, I think, is often wrong about Mykel Williams. I was lower on him just because of the potential and the pass rush I didn't think was going to be there for him. But I don't think he is a bad football player by any means. I think he's given the 49ers sort of exactly what the scouting report read this season.
I understand that for a pick that high, you want some pass rush production, and he's not providing it to the degree that you need. And if you're drafted 11th overall, I understand people that say like, well, you're supposed to be good enough that I don't care who's not there. So like, I understand that stuff, but I don't know. I think the floor is going to be pretty high for what he could become. And if he surprises people with what he's capable of with his ceiling, I think he's a good player. And then, so I was between him and Donovan Ezeraku.
Oh, baby. And
and
I will gladly take Donovan Ezeraku.
Donovan Ezeraku, I think over the last month has really kicked into gear. I think that's completely fair. You know, he's second among all rookies in pressures, and 13 of his 17 pressures have come in the last month. I think that's completely fair. And you know what? You know what I keep thinking about too, having just said this about Mykel Williams? If Donovan Ezeraku was on a pass rush with like some better pass rushers, I don't know, like maybe one of the best ones in the NFL, like an all-pro caliber pass rusher, how much better do you think he would look if he was in a more complimentary role instead of the Cowboys being like, all right, Donovan, go do that shit you did at BC right off the bat and save our pass rush now that we traded Micah Parsons?
Yeah, I love Donovan Ezeraku. He was my guy. I can't remember exactly where I had him ranked, but I believe I had him as a top 20, if not a top 15 overall player in the class. So it's funny that we talk about him next to the conversation with Mykel Williams, because I'm going to be honest with you, I would have drafted Donovan Ezeraku at 11. Like, that is who I would have picked at number 11.
Woo!
I had him ranked above Mykel Williams. And when you look at Mykel's average depth of tackle, I should say, in run defense is right at the line of scrimmage. It's right around 0. And Ezeraku's is like a 1.3, but a 1.3 is still a really good mark for solo stops. Mykel Williams this year has 9 solo stops himself. Donovan Ezeraku has 8. So he's only one behind where a run defender like Mykel Williams is. And you mentioned the pass rush. Over the last 3 weeks specifically, Donovan Ezeraku has had a pass rush win percentage above 20 in each of the last 3 games that the Cowboys have played. I think pound for pound, he has always been a plus run defender for his size. He is still able to do that at the NFL level. His pass rush win percentage is, like I said, it's been above 20 over the last 3 weeks. It's above 13 for the season, which is second only to Abdul Carter. And I just think the dude's a stud, and I think he's a hell of a football player. So I think the early returns are pretty good.
It sure as hell looks like it's coming together for him. All right, on the interior, going back to the point we just made about Connor Colby on the offensive line, we got to shout out Deion Walker, right?
Deion Walker is on my list. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
All right, so my 2 defensive tackles are Deion Walker and Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon is, he's a phenomenal player. He's a lot less interesting to me just because he was drafted highly. That's what he's supposed to do. He comes back from injury. He leads all interior defensive linemen in pressures. He's tied for most sacks among rookies, and he's doing this after missing the early part of the season. So incredibly impressive. But I do want to highlight Deion Walker, because when you're talking about a day 3 pick having 7 tackles for loss on a veteran-laden Bills defense, I think that's one of the coolest stories of the year that's going a little unsung right now.
Yeah, and when I talked about solo stops, the rookie who has the most solo stops in run defense this year is, in fact, Deion Walker. I was one of the guys who was a little bit lower on Deion Walker just because there was a lot of hype about him going into his last year at Kentucky, and when I looked at him, I was like, man, I just don't love the pad level that he plays with. And unless he really figures out how to get more flexible in his glutes, his hamstring, and his lower back to really be able to start at a lower point, I just get really worried about the fact that when the ball is snapped, he pops straight up. And when you're 6'7" and you have those long arms, it's really great on a measurement sheet of like, wow, look at this guy. He's a behemoth. He's so big and he's long and it's great. But you don't think about the fact that if you lose the leverage battle every single snap, that ain't good. And that's what it felt like it was. Now, I know he was going through a back injury his last year that he was at Kentucky, but that also compounded of why I was a little bit worried if he was going to be able to fix his leverage at the NFL level. There are still plays from what I watched when I went through this exercise with him on tape where he does give up that leverage a little bit too early. But there are more plays this year than I saw last year, at least at more of a consistent basis, where he is low. That pad level is low, and he just gets to be that big 6'7" long behemoth of a player in the middle for the Buffalo Bills, and he's given them some really high impact plays. So good shout out by you. I also have him on my list. And then the second defensive tackle that I have, I'll go a little bit of a homer here, but I'm only going a homer because I don't really have a strong feeling on anybody else. Elijah Roberts from Tampa Bay has been awesome for them as a 5th-round pick. This is somebody who, a little bit of a pre-draft bias from me, independent of my Tampa Bay bias that I might have.
Sure.
I had Elijah Roberts as my 86th overall player, and he ends up going in the 5th round. Like, I thought this dude, elite pass rush grade, the last 2 years at SMU. He's a little bit of a tweener in his size, but that works for Todd Bowles' odd front because he can play from a 4-eye. He can play a little bit of 3-tech. He can play as a heavy-handed 5-technique defensive end for you. And in run defense, like he struggles against the double teams just because he doesn't have a lot of weight on him, but he's been pretty good when it comes to that pass rush win percentage and getting in the backfield. And he's been an underrated player for them as a guy who's a 5th rounder who has really been able to step up and start and play some major minutes for him, if you will. So I think that he has been fantastic. But to be honest with you, it was really just an exercise where Harmon's missed some time, you mentioned, and he's been good in pass rush. Run defense stuff has been not great from him, but the good is at least really good with Derek Harmon, and so you can hang your hat on that. I do agree with you there, but man, Mason Graham's been okay. Kenneth Grant's he's been better over the last couple of weeks, but he had a downright terrible start. Walter Nolan's not played due to injury. Tyleek Williams, I think, has been okay, but he's been even a little hit and miss when it comes to the run defense stuff.
This is a tough position for rookies. I mean, I think everybody knows that. And yeah, I mean, for a guy like Harmon to come in and affect the pass rush as a rookie, even if you're a highly drafted rookie, like I'll take my wins where I can get it. That's why I think it's so incredible that Deion Walker's doing what he's doing as what, a 4th-round pick. So yeah, I mean, Mason Graham has been fine. I was really excited about him like 2-3 weeks in, but it seems like it's tapered off a little bit. So this is one of those where beauty is definitely in the eye of the beholder. But I love the Buccaneers shout because that's $2 now. And we're not done talking about the Bucs, by the way. So shout out Jason Light. It looks like you hit it out of the park, man.
He is one of the best in the NFL at drafting. He just truly, if you go back and you look at the last, I would say 6 draft classes that the Buccaneers have had, you just go, holy cow, how is he doing this? And it's just because before I worked at PFF, I worked at Pewter Report covering the Buccaneers as a beat reporter. So I've gotten to talk to Jason and gotten to know him a little bit, just like as a dude. He loves football, man. I mean, he came up through the scouting department with New England and the Arizona Cardinals before he got the GM gig with the Bucs, and like he just loves football, and he seeks out the true other guys who love football. And there is a standard that you have to uphold when you're on a Buccaneers draft board, and that's how you get Emeka Egbuka in the 1st round when you absolutely had no wide receiver need at all whatsoever at the time. You're just drafting the people who you think are just damn good football players. And I think that'll always play out if you let it go long enough.
In the interest of saving a little bit of time, you did say linebacker was pretty straightforward. I'm gonna step out on another limb. Although you've surprised me a couple times though. So all right. Carson Schwessinger's here, right? I mean, we don't have to say a whole lot about that. He's been phenomenal.
Yes.
Is your other linebacker Jihad Campbell or somebody else?
No, it's Campbell. It's definitely Campbell.
That's what I figured. Yes, I don't know. I don't know how much we need to say. I've said this on other shows. Coverage is typically the hard part for linebackers and safeties as well. Like just moving away from the football is the hard thing, and what you really look for and like what separates the good players. Like most guys in the NFL can kick ass if they're just flowing toward the line of scrimmage. What Jihad Campbell does in coverage is like this early in his career it's just awesome. Cool.
He's a stud. If not for that shoulder injury, he would have gone way higher in the draft, and he is absolutely showing that already this year. And then Carson Schwessinger, it's just the play speed, right? I mean, like his recognition, his play speed was what stood out at UCLA, and it's still the same thing in Cleveland. They're pointing to his tape at UCLA and they're saying, do that. You don't necessarily have to play like exactly how we want you to. We want you to play fast and free the way that you did when you were at UCLA, and he is.
That leaves us with 5 DBs to go through. And I'm curious for your take on this. So I kind of did the same thing I did on the offensive line, where I wanted to identify like guys that fill their roles. Like I wanted like a couple outside corners, I wanted a slot defender, I wanted 2 safeties. Did you do that, or did you just like grab your favorite 5 DBs?
I ended up having 2 slot defenders and 1 outside corner, but that's simply because like one of these players is the hybrid of all hybrids that just had to get named on this list, I think.
I bet I know who you're going to mention, which is fun because if you're talking about who I think you're talking about, I left him off of mine, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Where do you want to start? I'm going to throw it like just start wherever you want to. We'll do 3 corners, 2 safeties.
Let's start with corners, and we can start with Jacob Parrish if you want to.
Yeah, I do want to start with Jacob Parrish, Trevor, because he's awesome. He's so fun. He was my choice for Nickelback. I just think it's so cool that they threw him in there from the word go, and he's just a little Tasmanian devil out there making everybody's life miserable. 431 snaps on the year, like all 8 games. And he has taken to what Todd Bowles likes to do with a vigor. He's just flying in there, making tackles. They use him as a blitzer. He's awesome. He's so fun.
He is somebody who it's very funny because they had Tyke Smith in that slot role the previous season, and he was somebody who played safety when he was in college, and then you move him to the slot full-time in the NFL, and he played it really, really well, defended the run specifically really well near the line of scrimmage. And when the talk was that they wanted to move Tyke back to safety next to Antoine Winfield Jr., I was like, I don't know about that. Like, there's so much value to when you can defend the run that well with your nickel defender. I think that's something that gets very lost when it comes to scouting and projecting and putting guys in college on NFL teams. A lot of times it's like, oh, okay, like here's this corner who is smaller as an outside corner for NFL standards. Let's just kick him inside. Well, if he can't defend the run, you don't want to kick him inside. You're close to the line of scrimmage. You got to have people who are able to do that. And so when they talked about moving Tyke back, I was very worried. Then they drafted Jacob Parrish, and I go, okay, I can see the vision here. But what's interesting enough is he's starting in the slot. He only had 200 snaps in the slot throughout his entire Kansas State career. And that's compared to almost 1,200 that he had as an out wide corner. He was an outside corner when he was at Kansas State. And they brought him in, and not only did, like you said, from the jump, he's starting at a slot spot that he did not start primarily at throughout any of his college career. So he's been unbelievable. He defends the run just as well as Tyke Smith did. He's really feisty in coverage, and he's perfect for this DNA of what Todd Bowles wants to do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And Tyke also handling that switch admirably. Not that he's a rookie, but I've had a lot of fun watching the Tampa Bay defense. All right, we both love Jacob Parrish. That's not really a surprise. Will Johnson has to be mentioned here, I would assume, or no?
Ooh, I didn't have Will Johnson. And I actually went with Trey Amos instead.
Okay, so let's talk about this because I went with both. Those were my 2 outside guys where I was like, okay, if I'm trying to build this thing like an actual defense, then I want my 2 guys that can play on the boundary and are doing like the prototypical corner things. And I know Will Johnson has played fewer games, but I think they've both been like, they both deserve mention here in my opinion.
Yeah, I think both of these guys have been totally fine. I think that Will Johnson, like with him having a little bit of injury and people were kind of like freaking out about that and him being a little bit down, I think to start the season, if I'm remembering correctly, like he's coming on just fine. Will Johnson's going to be great. When he was healthy at Michigan, he was one of the best corners. And to be honest, I kind of just went with Trey Amos because he's played 200 more coverage snaps. Like that's all
sure.
it is. And that's
part of it for me for sure was like that this guy's been doing it all year long. Yeah.
Now, Will Johnson has a much higher run defense grade than Trey Amos does in our PFF system. And so, like, I could have had that hold a little bit more weight. But when you look at coverage stuff, The coverage grades are pretty similar. It's right around 70.0. The forced incompletions for Trey Amos, he's got 6 forced incompletions. That's 21.4%. Will Johnson has 6. That's 22.2%. Will Johnson has that interception, but interceptions are, I think they're so much of an opportunistic thing most of the time. So I look much more on forced incompletion. So both of these guys are kind of right there, but I just ended up going with Trey Amos because Amos is also in a situation where the Commanders coverage group
He's doing a lot of lifting.
Good this year.
He's doing a lot of lifting back there.
And for your rookie to be the best coverage player on the team, I also gave him a little bit of a bump just sort of knowing that and how much Washington struggled.
So if I'm reading your approach correctly, all right, so I opted for like 2 outside guys and you opted for 1. And did you use that space for your do everything demon player?
Correct. I did. Indeed.
And am I reading your mind correctly that this is Nick Emanwari of the Seattle Seahawks?
This is absolutely going to be Nick Emanwari. And this is a little bit, it's funny because you sided with Will Johnson. You sided with Oronde Gadsden. You sided with these guys who is like, okay, like sort of like, and even Derek Harmon, right? These sort of like, hey, the highs are the best for these guys, and you're kind of leaning into that. And I've been a little bit more of a volume guy when it comes to the names that I've listed off here for this show. But Nick Emanwari specifically in a Mike McDonald defense, man, I have to put this guy on the list, even if it was just for what was this past game where he was an absolute animal for them. And, you know, here's another example of, I was a little bit lower on Nick Emanwari as a whole than I think consensus was. I think I had him right around like 68th overall on my big board. And I recognized the alien athleticism, the versatility that he had. He could be the possibilities are endless, right? He could be a free safety, a strong safety. You could play him as a linebacker. You could play him in the slot, all of these things. But I got a little bit worried about him because his play in space was probably where I liked him the best. But sometimes he'd show a little bit of struggle with flipping the hips with him being a bigger defensive back. And so I take that into account with a free safety role for him. As a strong safety and as a linebacker when he was in South Carolina, he didn't love hitting as much as I kind of wanted him to if you're playing closer to the line of scrimmage there. And then I liked his slot stuff, but I was like, yeah, is he just going to be a full-time slot guy in the NFL? I don't know. There's not a lot of defenses that I think would see him and play him as that type of a player. All that to say, we also did team-specific top 100 big boards last year where I would take certain players, and obviously if I thought they were good fits for the scheme, the coaching staff, the roster, all the team needs, all that good stuff, they'd be a little bit higher or lower than maybe where I would have them independently on my big board. Nick Emanwari was highest of any team for the Seattle Seahawks specifically. I had him 26th overall for that team specifically because I trusted Mike McDonald to play him in a way that was most advantageous. And very clearly, that is as a slot type of defender for them. So he has been, even in a small sample size, as advertised when getting into that defensive structure that Mike McDonald runs.
It kind of reminds me of Tyler Warren, where like my enthusiasm for a prospect can be buoyed so much by who drafts him. Because Emanwari just scared me, where I was like, yes, the freakishness is well noted, but is it going to translate in the scheme that he's playing in? And like the minute somebody like Mike McDonald drafts him, it should be a flag on your radar that everything's probably going to be okay. I'll be honest, and I apologize to Seahawks fans. I left him off because he's played 185 snaps so far.
Yeah, very fair.
He got hurt quickly in week 1. He's played basically 3 games. And listen, man, his performance against Houston was like taking pre-workout. Like I could have just run a marathon after watching him in that game. Like it was great, but I left him off because I want to see what 6 weeks looks like instead of 3. That's all. Like I think he's wonderful, but it came down to that for me. All right. So that leaves 2 more spots for safeties.
Yes.
I bet you we're going to agree that one of them goes to Xavier Watts in Atlanta.
So I actually left Xavier Watts off.
I keep expecting you to agree with me, and you don't. Like, I should stop leading you into these situations.
This was so much tougher than I thought it was going to be. because I love Xavier Watts. I went into this exercise.
That wasn't tough for me. I wrote Xavier Watts pretty quickly
down, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when he went in the third round, I was like, steal, no question about it. He's going to be fantastic, and he has shown really good flashes and really good highs. But there were 4 players that I considered for this safety spot. Xavier Watts was one of them. Andrew Makuba was the other. Jonas Sanker for the New Orleans Saints, and Craig Woodson for the New England Patriots. I think all 4 of these guys had different parts of their game within what was asked of them to do in their current defensive structure that you go, yeah, you're doing that really well. And some of the other stuff, okay, maybe you're struggling a little bit here, but this was way tougher than I thought it was going to be. And to be honest with you, I thought you were going to pick Xavier Watts, so I knew he would get the recognition. So I went with 2 other guys to maybe give them a little bit of added recognition.
Okay, so you outlined the 4. Who did you opt for?
I went with Andrew Makuba as 1 because the play speed of Andrew Makuba just continues to amaze me. I loved it so much of when he was playing at Texas, how quickly he was able to recognize things, but also get to the location that he needed to. He still looks just as fast in an NFL uniform and what he's doing for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is flying down in run defense. He struggles a little bit in man coverage against bigger tight ends because he is a smaller, more slender safety, but there's so much of what he brings to the table. They ask him to do a lot. They ask him to come down from depth and be a sure tackler, which he continues to do. And so Andrew Makuba is one of them. And then I actually went with Jonas Sanker as the other one.
I went with Jonas Sanker on the other one too. And I'll be honest with you, Trev. I mean, like he's a good player. I like all these guys are good. I opted for Sanker because I was like, what else do we need to say about the Eagles? Like the Eagles have all these guys. Like Makuba's on even if the Eagles defense isn't what we think it is, or like what we hoped it could be, like the Eagles defense is plenty good. They got all these guys. They play in all these primetime games. I chose Jonas Sanker mainly because let's talk about something positive for the New Orleans Saints, which is that this, third round safety that they drafted is playing pretty well on a team that nobody gives a shit about right now. Like that's what it came down to for me.
They have him playing in the strong safety role. So when you're in cover 3 situations, they're buzzing him down and he's playing either as a robber or he's playing a more shallow zone. But then they also, when they go to man, they're lining him up against tight ends. And specifically, that's actually what put him over the edge for me to name him in one of these spots is he's had some really impressive reps in man coverage against tight ends this season with pass breakups and just giving up no separation and affecting the catch point, along with, there have been times when, okay, he's outran the play and didn't take the right pursuit angle, but that's sort of just being a safety. You know that you're going to have those plays, and it's not going to be perfect every single game, especially when you're a rookie. But those coverage reps of him in man coverage against a tight end, I think are very, very difficult to do, and he's had some really high moments doing that. And then I just think that he is playing that robber over the middle role very aggressively and very confidently to where I wanted to give him a shout out here on this show.
I am a sucker for guys who are going to be playing what? I mean, Jonas Sanker, of course, I can't get it to pull up right now, but like Jonas Sanker is going to play like 16 of his 17 games at noon on a Sunday. And unless he does something nuts like pick off Josh Allen, which he did, by the way, nobody's going to know that he's doing it at all outside of Saints fans. Nobody's going to know that it's happening. So Andrew Makuba he's having a great season. I love where he's at, but I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this guy instead, because we're going to see the Eagles in primetime like 4 more times this year.
The important part about safety, and I went into this podcast thinking this, was that I at least said the names of the 4 guys that I agonized over before I sent your producer the list. And so as long as we did that, I'm fine with how it all ended up.
I think that's perfectly put. Like, yeah, the goal here was really just to highlight as many guys we like as possible. But, if you want to get mad at me because Nick Emenwari didn't win midpoint safety of the year, rookie safety of the year, that's fine. I bet you he'll be on my list by November if I had to guess.
Yeah. If he keeps it up, he absolutely will. There's no question.
Trev, this was a ton of fun, man. I really appreciate it. Love talking ball with you. Thanks for stopping in. We'll absolutely be sure to check in with you soon, man. Take care.
Dave, you're the man. I appreciate you having me on. This is a ton of fun. And yeah, man, we'll talk soon.
Thanks for watching. Follow The Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.